Hey guys, last week we learned about equations and modeling those equations with our algebra tiles. This week we're going to talk about solving those equations that are already modeled. This question says x plus 2 equals 4. We want to solve for the x, that unknown. Our algebra tiles show an x plus the 2 positives equaling your 6 positives. I want to get that x isolated. That means I want that x all by itself. I want to find out what x really is. In order to do that, I have to work with opposites. I have a positive 2. So the opposite of positive 2 is a negative 2. So I'm going to bring in 2 negatives. And remember, equations are just like balance beams. So whatever I do to the left side, I have to do to the right side. So I have to bring in 2 negatives. A positive and a negative, they cancel each other out. So now I'm just left with x equaling 4 positives. And that's exactly what x is. 4 plus 2 equals 6. In this example, I have x minus 4 equals a negative 2. Now, with all integer problems, remember we have to leave, change, opposite. So I have x, change it to addition, and the opposite of 4 is a negative 4. So I modeled x with negative 4 equaling negative 2. To isolate my x, get x all by itself, I need to do the opposite of what I have. I have negative 4, so now I want positive 4. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I need 4 positives. A positive and a negative cancel. They create a 0. So I am left with x equaling 2 positives. And if I put 2 back into my problem, 2 plus negative 4 is going to equal negative 2. So we're correct. Our third example says 3x equals negative 9. Now, when we have a number next to a letter, it means to multiply. But we still have to work with opposites. And the opposite of multiply is divide. So what I really want to do is divide these negative 9 tiles into 3 groups. In order to do that, I like to just knock over my x's. So I'm going to change this picture and just knock them over. Now I can see that I have 3 negative tiles in each group. So x, just having one x, is going to equal negative 3. And our last example has x divided by 2 equaling 3. Remember, we talked in class that half of this x equals 3 positives. I don't want half of an x. I want the whole x. So instead of dividing, I want to multiply. I have two sections. So if the bottom half equals 3, then the top half also has to equal 3. So in this case, 1 whole x equals the 6 tiles. And if we plug that in, 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Just remember, when solving equations, we have to look for the opposite. If we're adding, the opposite is subtract. If we're subtracting, the opposite is adding. If we're multiplying, the opposite is divide. And if we're dividing, the opposite is multiply. Make sure you find your opposites.